Hi everybody, and today I'm here with the GDScript I've never coded before help tutorial episode 1. So this is just a little intro to the series, and what this series is going to be is a basic outline of coding using GDScript within the Godot engine to teach it, which is going to use some cool game design to do it. Right, so what is a programming language in simple words? So a programming language is a vocabulary and set of grammatical rules for a computer or computing device to perform specific tasks. That sounds really confusing, but basically I have this little picture here to kind of explain to what it is. And so basically you have this problem for whatever it may be, and you have human interactions. So you basically convert this problem into some sort of human understanding. The human then sends it to the computer, and then the computer basically solves the issue. So the human instructions is actually what the programming language is, and the zeros and ones is what the computer is actually calculating, and you get an answer. So that's basically what code does, right? So it's just like a set of rules. It's like English. It's like the English language. So imagine trying to translate from English to, let's say, Spanish, right? And you wouldn't know how to do it unless if you knew the grammatical rules on how to translate from English to Spanish, or if you had an English to Spanish dictionary, right? That's really all it is. People always make coding seem like it's something you have to learn and spend years at to understand, when it's not really like that. As long as you have what you need, you can solve most issues, right? So I always say, most of the time. So I always tell people that 9 out of 10 times, for a beginner programmer versus an intermediate or more advanced programmer, they will be able to do 9 of the 10 same tasks. It's just the more advanced programmer will be able to do it much faster than the beginner programmer. It's not always the case. That's what I leave that 1 out of 10 for, because there are certain things that beginner programs just aren't going to be able to do, right? It's just too substantial, it's too big, it's too much for them, right? But a lot of other things a beginner and an intermediate or advanced coder can do. It's just at what speed and how well the code's going to run, I guess, right? So everybody has the same stuff available to them. It's just how well you're able to do it, right? So what are the types of languages, right? So everybody's kind of probably heard of a programming language, right? So there's Java, C, C++, Python, Rust, Arduino, and in this case, GDScript. So GDScript is what the Godot engine uses, and it's about 75% Python, 25% C++. It's probably not really that ratio. I just kind of call it that because it's very Python-y. That's even a term, but there is some C elements in it. So this little image here kind of shows how languages work, right? So you have the hardware of the actual computer, which is then interpreted by the machine language, which is like the zeros and ones, which then you have like the assembly language, which puts it together into more understandable terms, which then you have your high-level languages, which is basically what humans use to interact with the computer, right? So basically, the higher up this pyramid you go, the easier it is for a human to understand the code, and the lower the pyramid you go down, the easier it is for, I guess, the computer. The closer it is to the computer's language, right? So that's really all computing languages are. So what knowledge do you need for this course? What do you need to know before you start? Well, do you speak English? I'm not trying to bash on people who don't speak English or who don't even speak English well. It's just I speak English and nothing else. So this course is going to be in English, so yeah, that's about that. Addition. Are you able to do 3rd grade math? Are you able to do basic addition, basic subtraction? Can you do multiplication, division? Do you know your times tables? That's really about it, right? You don't really have to be able to do addition because the computer can do it all for you. And lastly, logic. Are you able to understand basic logical information, right? So let's say A is equal to B and B is equal to C. A is therefore equal to C, right? So that's known as the 0th law of thermodynamics, but it's also just a basic logic concept. So logic, out of all these, is definitely the hardest part of this. But for this, we won't be going to these super obscure hard logic problems. We'll just be doing really basic stuff. But in general, the logic is usually one of the harder things, at least in my experience of when it comes to coding. So the items required for this course: a computer, which I assume most of you have if you're watching this, or maybe using your phone, the internet, which I know everyone has if they're watching this, and lastly Godot, which is the game engine we're going to use that has GDScript on it to run this course. So what's going to be covered in this little course here? So as I said earlier, this course is probably only going to be, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 episodes long. Not going to be that long. I don't really have a whole lot planned for it. but you can kind of see before you. I have variables and vectors, so we'll talk about how variables work, what they are, what are floats, what are doubles, what are booleans, all that stuff, right? And then we'll explain what loops are, what your if loops, for loops, and while loops are, and what your and then what are functions and what are classes, which is a little more advanced, but nothing crazy. And it'll be basic stuff. This course is definitely meant for people who have never coded before. If you have lots of coding experience, this course is not going to be for you. There's better courses out there. And if you already know what you're doing in GDScript, this is also not for you. This is for people who have never coded or have very little coding experience. And I'm just trying to break it down very simply. So why Godot to learn programming languages? So first and foremost, it's fun, right? So anything is better to learn when you have fun doing it, right? So if any of you have ever taken a programming course or any of the free ones online or through a college or whatever, right? You know that they're not the most interesting things, right? So a lot of times your first couple weeks, they teach you very boring things. Which I understand. They're trying to teach you the basics, but it's not that fun. They're basically saying, hey, we're going to make the computer like say hello world, or we're going to have some array and we're going to pull some values from it, or we're going to grab Excel. It's always a big one, right? We're going to grab Excel and we're going to crunch these numbers and change the cells and do some cool math, I guess. Or do some basic graphs. Or you get more advanced and you're like, hey, we'll create some basic algorithms, right? Or even more advanced, like, hey, we're going to do some optimization algorithms of the following data. And then on top of that, you can even go neural network pathing with machine learning, right? But the end stuff, the neural network pathing usually is pretty fun, which is machine learning, but we're not even going to get close to that. But a lot of the courses, as I was saying, are just not that fun. So Godot is fun because it allows one to basically see their work as they're doing it, right? So you'll be able to kind of see your game come together using basic coding practices. We'll create a simple game, and you'll see that coding isn't anything to be scared of, and when you have fun doing it, it's way more fun to learn than not. Secondly, it's very similar to Python. So Godot is very similar to Python, as I said earlier, and it's kind of similar to C++, which is very good for you and everybody else because Python is the second most popular language in the world, I believe, behind Java, and C++, I believe, is third or fourth. So they're both extremely popular languages and good to know. And once you know one programming language or understand one programming language, the rest of them come very easily, right? So I can program in probably 9 or 10 languages now, but the first one was definitely took me longer to understand than the next 7 or 8, 9, whatever it was. Lastly, this one comes a little bit with an asterisk, as Godot is well documented, but only with certain things sometimes. So, especially with GDScript. So some things you're like, man, this is really well explained, and this person did a great job with it. And other things, not as much. And it's nothing to bash on the engine about. It's just, it's open source, and so it's kind of what people want to put towards it. But it's definitely gotten a lot better recently. So that's a big thing. Also, a lot of the documentation doesn't have not tutorials, but I guess visual examples of some of the stuff. So they'll just kind of explain it using some words and then not really show an example of it, which to me drives me nuts because I just want to see how somebody does it. I don't really care. You don't have to explain why or how it works. Like, just show me like what it is, and then I'll figure out that way. So that's another thing kind of bothers me. But a lot of the base stuff is well documented on Godot, right? So this, made with beautiful AI right there. So you can see here, this is the documentation for the GDScript, right? So this is 3.1. You may have something similar or a version ahead, but it's very similar. It hasn't changed a ton recently, right? So this is some example code they have. So as I said, we'll explain what variables are, constants, your basic functions, your if, else ifs, fors, and while statements, and some classes maybe. And this is a long documentation thing, and they do a good job. Like, there's some things that are greatly well explained here, but other things are just like, man, this is kind of confusing. Like, what in the world? It's just because some of these people are so much smarter than me that write this stuff. I just don't know if they can always break it down to people who haven't ever coded before, right? So this is the documentation, which you'll probably be taking a peek at, but a lot of stuff's just on the forums. And lastly, the Godot engine. So this is the site of the Godot engine. So this is what you need to download to run this course. That's all you need. The engine is very small size-wise, and it's very fast, right? So it works well. You click download. I assume you know how to download a file, and basically, yeah, that's all you setup you need. And that's about the end of this video. So next time we'll actually get into the coding itself, and we'll cover basic variables, I believe is what I have scheduled. So some variables and some other basic things to get you started. So thanks for watching.